All right, second graders, this one is very, very challenging. Now, I say that because you don't have to do it. If this is upsetting to you, or mom and dad are nervous about this, or they don't have time to help you, don't worry about it. It's just for fun. I know that some of you really, really like this kind of thing. I'm picturing Gavin enjoying this. I think Drake would enjoy this. I think Gabriel, Christina would like this. So if you want a real challenge, then you try to work this out. And there will be problems like this in third grade. Sometimes there's no specific answer, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm sending a picture of the problem. So I'll put the picture on Class Dojo, and then I'm going to get you started here. So Annie and Dustin took a beginner's programming course. Okay, if that sounds confusing, don't worry about it. It's just a computer class over several weekends that showed them how to make simple video games. They spent most of their waking hours engaged in programming tasks. Don't worry about that. That just means making computers do stuff, directions for the computer, and ended up with a game they called Robot Roll Call. How many hours do you think they spent on the course? Show your work. Okay, so what does Mrs. Betts always say? Annie and Dustin took a beginner's programming course over several weekends that showed them how to make simple video games. What does the first sentence tell us? Nothing, right? Well, here's the first decision you have to make. Several weekends. What does that mean? How many days are in a weekend? That usually means Saturday and Sunday. Okay, now it says several weekends. What is several to you? I don't think it's 2. Do you know what they would say if it was 2? I think they'd say a couple weekends. So let's go with 3, but you actually could say 4. Either one of those would work, 3 or 4 weekends. Probably 3 is a good starting place. And over several weekends, it showed them how to make the video games. How many did they make? There's a lot of questions. I have tons of questions. So all I figured out that what they did took several weekends. A weekend is 2 days, and let's go with 3 weekends. But if you want to figure it out over 4 weekends, that's okay too. What's the next part say? They spent most of their, this is key, waking hours engaged in programming and ended up with a video game they called, it's a silly name. So the next question you have to figure out is how many hours are in a day. When they say waking hours, what does that mean? You're going to have to figure that out, and all of us will have a different number. So let's figure out my waking hours. So I would say I get up about 6 and I go to bed about, I'll say 10. It's been a little bit later since we've been home, but I'll say 10. So I'm going to count all my hours I'm awake. From 6 to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then the clock starts over. 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So my waking hours, my hours that I'm awake, not sleeping, is about 16 hours. Maybe your hours are different. Maybe they're different than mine. Maybe you go to bed at 9 o'clock. We can have different answers. And I'm probably going to take out let's take out a good 2 hours for eating. So I'm going to say 14 hours. If I really had a project to work on, I have 14 hours to work on it. So now, for every weekend I worked on it, 14 hours is the time that I would be awake. I figured out, I took out some hours for eating, getting dressed, brushing my teeth. And this amount of time would happen on a Saturday, on a Sunday, for 3 weekends. Are you with me? So 3 times on a Saturday, they had 14 hours. On a Sunday, they had 14 hours. But this happened 3 times. What if you added up the hours? Is that 28 over 3 weekends? How much time would that be? But you can also, and I would encourage you to change your numbers a little bit. Maybe you call several weekends 4 weekends. Then your answer would be different than mine. Maybe your waking hours are different than mine. So this is a very, very challenging problem, boys and girls. If you feel frustrated and you don't want to try it, you don't have to try it. But I would encourage you to. This is going to show up in 3rd grade. There's problems like this where there's not one specific answer. What we're looking for is a reasonable answer. If you said that they worked on it for 3 hours, that wouldn't be reasonable because nobody sleeps. How many hours are there in a day? There's 24 hours in a day. Nobody sleeps for 1 hour. And I said 23 hours of sleep and 1 hour awake. That's not reasonable. If somebody said they worked on it for 1,000 hours, that's not reasonable. I don't even think there are 1,000 waking hours on a few Saturdays and Sundays. So we're just looking for a reasonable answer. Do you remember these math words? For a lot of math problems, we said the answer was about. Remember that word? We're just getting close. And it's just for fun. Okay? So let me know if you try it and we'll talk about your answer.